Welcome to week 3 of Recharge and Reset in Lockdown. And today we're going to be talking about decluttering and dealing with emotional overwhelm. And I'm very fortunate in that I've managed to talk Cheryl Alderman into coming in and talking to us about dealing with emotional overwhelm, because it's a topic she's really good at managing. And I think from another perspective, she probably would have had to walk me through it. So it's actually really nice that she could join us today. And looks like Binge just joined the call too. So I'll just let her know that we are recording at the moment. So congratulations to those of you who've made it through 3 weeks. Well done. We were just talking a little bit about, what people have changed, what worked and what didn't. There was a bit of feedback about herbal teas, hydration, and also the difficulty of maintaining connection at the moment. So I'll just put that on hold for a minute as we go through and deal with this week's topics. But I think at the end of this, we're just going to sit and brainstorm a bit of a goal and strategy to take us through to the end of the year, if that's okay with everyone.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so this week we're looking at decluttering, dealing with overwhelm, and goals for the next few months. I probably should have updated that slide. Now, in terms of decluttering, I want to suggest a few strategies from some workshops I've attended that really helped me get my head around how to deal with this. And one of the first things is when you're looking at wardrobes, and some of you may know a lovely lady called Vivian Cable. She used to run a business called Image by Design, and she's really good at cleaning out wardrobes and decluttering generally. And so she introduced me to this, what I call the 3 boxes strategy. But someone else actually gave me the third box, which is one for dating, which is not going out on a date. It's actually dating, putting the date on the box. So the strategy with this is, if you're sorting through your wardrobe and you're the sort of person who has trouble throwing things out, I want you to think about, get yourself 3 boxes or 3 bags, but boxes works well as a visual analogy. One is for landfill. So one of the things I was reading about was that through the last few years, a lot of the clothing that goes into those recycling boxes actually ends up in third world countries, and it ends up in their landfill, because what's donated is dirty, stained, torn, unwearable, missing buttons, missing zips. So I would say, as your own personal contribution, make sure you throw that stuff out for landfill now. So the first bag is the rubbish bag. The second bag is the recycling bag. And this could be, if you've got really nice, if you're like me and you find the occasional garment that still has the tag on it, I usually, which is, yes, I know. I did have some bad shopping habits in the day, but, I do have one dress. Yes. Okay. Don't dog me in, Mum.
Yeah, I'm laughing too. We've all done
all on mute in a minute. But yes, my shopping habits weren't always good. And you buy a dress for an occasion and you wouldn't have taken the tags off, and you get out the wardrobe 2 years later and realize that you didn't wear that dress. And, it's just hanging there, and it's probably no longer either fashionable or suitable. So the recycling pile, there are some charities that take clothing that's suitable for women for interviews. What's it called, Cheryl? There's one that...
Dress for Success.
Dress for Success is one that actually picks up on those. So that can be a good, you can actually put things aside for Dress for Success or the local clothing bin. Or if you
I think the Women's Refuge in Hornsby takes things too, if they're good quality, especially for workwear.
Yep.
So for jobs and job interviews and things like that, I think they do too.
Okay, so if you're familiar with, if you've got the details, can you pop that in the chat? Because that would be really good information for people to have. But I definitely think if it's suitable for interviews and workwear, and it is good to give it to that specific organisation rather than having it go into a general pool where it requires it to be sorted. And then the third box is the box where, that lovely formal dress you wore to an event 10 years ago that's been sitting in the cupboard ever since.
That's my favourite.
That's your favourite. Now,
I'll fit it again one day. One day I'll be able to get into it again.
Exactly. Some of you may be fortunate enough that you're in a position where your size hasn't changed for 10 years, but for the rest of us, reality, try and put it on. If the zip doesn't work, put it in the box if you're not ready to let go of it, and write the date on the box. And then, so you write today's date on. In a year's time, if you still haven't opened that box, it's ready to go out. Okay. So you can move it on. All right. Then there's a couple of other things that I find visually are quite indicative of clutter. And I suppose it goes to me photos, because I'm always horrified at how many photos I've taken on my iPhone. And for other people, it may be photo books. But what I've learned with taking photographs on the iPhone is I take like 4 or 5 really quickly, because I hope that one of them is okay. And this is partly because I am not the world's best photographer, and Cheryl will probably attest to that. But if I take lots of photos, then the chances are 2 or 3 of them be good. What you need to do after that is actually go through and delete all the rubbish ones, so that you're not actually keeping them for ages thinking, oh, I might use them at some point. Chances are you're not going to use them, and they're just cluttering up your phone and your storage and making it hard to find other things. So the other thing that I find really useful on your phone is you can set up albums. So I put all my food pics in an album because I might need them for a Facebook post or something else later, and it saves me buying photos. Now, half the time I will admit that I do get one of my friends who's a very good visually to actually take the photo for me so that it's actually better quality. But, you know, there are some apps as well. I can hear someone in the background. If you might just want to pop yourself on mute if there's someone behind you on the phone. I don't know.
I know who it is. With a loud voice. Someone's husband.
Anyway, the other thing with photos is that there are actually some apps which will go through and show you all the similar photos on your phone so that you can delete them. They're paid apps, but I've got to say I used one and I got rid of about 1,000 photos in probably an hour. So it was actually really worthwhile. Now with emails, many years ago, I did this workshop about managing your email better. And there were 2 things I really learned out of it that really helped keep the clutter down. The first is, if you're using Outlook, you can set up rules. So I would put all the emails from my suppliers and all the emails with research into a folder entitled research or suppliers, so that it went straight in there and I didn't have it cluttering up and distracting me every time I was trying to work. And that actually got rid of a lot of clutter. But the other thing, the simple one, was if you've got, 10,000 emails in your folder, particularly if you use something like Gmail, just set up a folder with emails pre-2020 and transfer everything into that, which then frees up your inbox and makes it a lot easier to sort out. So they'd be my top 2 on decluttering. And probably the next one, I mean, you probably think this is a weird one to include, but I said kitchen utensils. It was because I couldn't find an icon with Tupperware. But does anyone have that Tupperware cupboard that every time you open the door, everything falls out on the floor? I know Barbara doesn't have one because she's very tidy, but unlike me. So first thing is, if you want a small project that makes you feel like you've accomplished everything, put it all out on the bench, and anything that doesn't have a lid goes. Because you are never going to find that lid. It's not going to show up. So just get rid of it and then actually get it down to a manageable part. The other thing too is if you want another little project, get out your kitchen utensil drawer, which is probably crammed with stuff, and sort it out into individual items. How many pairs of tongs do you need? How many spoons do you need? How many wooden spoons do you need? How many of them are looking a bit manky and probably have a little bit of food or bacteria on them and should really go in the bin? And just, because that's a workspace you're using all the time. So if that's clean and tidy, I think it really helps reduce the amount of overwhelm. So saying that, I'm now going to pass it on to Cheryl to talk a little bit about a really fabulous technique for managing emotional overwhelm, because I think it's really present in the world at the moment. So Cheryl, I took some liberties with your slide, but I can't hear you at the moment.
No.
I don't have anyone speaking in the background, but there was someone gardening over the fence, so I thought I'd turn it off while you were speaking. And now they're getting closer, so I apologise. Luckily, I have a loud voice. All right, so I think that the small chat we had at the start, and thank you for sharing, those of you who said, you know, that they weren't feeling okay. I think the biggest thing that I'm hearing from people at the moment, and this week in particular, because we're seeing those numbers go up. We've already been home for, I think this is our 8th week. We're seeing the rest of the country start to join in. And I think a lot of people have said to me that last year felt a lot scarier. This year feels a lot more stressful. Yeah. So there's definitely a shift. And last year it was new. We knew nothing. We were all very afraid. This year, even though in theory the version of COVID that we're dealing with is scarier, there's more stress than fear, seems to be the feeling around with people. And I think I'm going to change rooms. So just excuse me, because that's getting really loud and I can't think, let alone speak. Give me a second. Come with me to my other room.
But you had the nice painting in the backdrop there.
I know. Now I'm in my boring office with just a white wall behind me, I think.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can't see the vacuum cleaner on the floor.
We'll have to paint the wardrobes.
Put a picture up, like Jean's nice picture. Yeah, so there's a real difference there. And the other thing that I'm hearing a lot at the moment is people they've got lockdown fatigue. So they're tired of being in lockdown. Can you see me? I can't see.
Yeah, yes. I've got you on. Yes.
Okay. So there's a tiredness that people are feeling at the moment, but it's not a physical tiredness, it's an emotional tiredness. And so I think it's really important to talk about the emotional side of what's going on at the moment. But one of the first things I think we all need to understand is that it doesn't matter what your situation is right now, it is really difficult. So whether, like me, you're on your own and living on your own and dealing with lockdown that way, or whether you have a husband and children with you, or whether you have an extended family, or whether you are, you know, a young person with 3 flatmates in an apartment, it doesn't matter. Everyone is battling with this. And I think it's really important that we're all aware of that, because what I've noticed in some conversations is that people, instead of listening to each other and how each other are feeling, it's almost become a little bit competitive. You know, so it's more like someone's like, oh, I'm really finding this tough. Oh, well, you know, at least you're not in a house with kids trying to homeschool and work, you know, or, well, what about me? I'm on my own, or, you know, and I don't know, you can take yourselves off mute if you like. I'd be interested to hear if that's the sort of thing that you're finding in conversations, that it's almost becoming, I'm worse than you.
I'm actually trying to, I think I'm actually doing the reverse of that. I'm going, well, at least I'm on the North Shore and I've got parks nearby and I can go for a walk and I should be feeling okay.
And people like you, what I'm hearing is they're starting to feel guilty because that person up the road is on their own and they haven't got family nearby and they can't go here or here and so on. So there's all these different kinds of emotions that we might not normally feel, but also that we're all feeling within ourselves. And so when we're talking to others, I think the first thing to be aware of is that we're not just talking to others so they can feel our pain, that we're listening to others and hearing their pain. And I think, you know I've been guilty of it over the past 8 weeks on occasion, and I'm sure you all have, of that, you know, someone starting to tell you how they're feeling and you're either giving them a solution or telling them to focus on something positive or telling them about your situation that's actually worse. So the first thing I think I want to remind you all is that when you are talking to other people, focus on them first, ask them how they're feeling, listen to how they're feeling and validate how they're feeling before you start telling them how you're feeling. So opening up that understanding and acceptance that other people are feeling pain as well.
If you validate, sorry, can you hear me, Cheryl? If you validate and say, yeah, I understand it's really hard,
Yeah, or I can hear that you're feeling really trapped.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it sounds like you're feeling really frustrated. So saying back to them what you think you're hearing emotionally, that connection that you were talking about from last week, that's what creates that deeper level connection, is you know, understanding that other people are in pain too, and hearing that and validating that. They are then way more open to hearing your pain or hearing what you're going through, because you've validated them, you were understanding them. They now want to do the same in return. So I think that's kind of my first message. I think it's important to notice, and you may not be doing that, but if you are, just, you know, notice that you might be doing that. And by dismissing or giving them a solution or whatever, you're actually not validating how they're feeling. So that's really important. So then we come back to ourselves. And another thing I'm noticing at the moment is that a lot of us are trying to fix ourselves when we're not feeling okay. You know, I feel really down today. And then we automatically go to, how can I not feel down now? Yeah. I think we need to be kind and compassionate to ourselves as well. The reality is we are going through an extraordinarily difficult situation. We're in a situation that we've never been in our entire lives, nor have the people around us. We don't know what's going to happen. There's a big, fat, giant question mark in front of us every single day. It's a whole world of unknown. So it's absolutely natural to be feeling emotional and to be feeling out of control or sad or anxious or whatever your feeling might be right now, today, at this moment. So what I'd like to give you is, I'd like to give you a little tool, and it's not designed to get rid of those feelings, because it's really important that we acknowledge our feelings and we let ourselves feel them. They have a purpose, right? They're there to help keep us safe, keep us happy, and we need to acknowledge them, and we need to be okay to have them. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to get stuck in them so that we can't get out, right? We need to be able to acknowledge them, but move ourselves on from that in a positive way, without dismissing them, without repressing them, because I'm sure Christine would have told you many times, repressing your emotions creates all sorts of nasty physical things in your body, so we don't want to do that. So I'm going to give you a little tool that you can use when you find yourself in a moment of emotional overwhelm. Now, the main emotions that people go to are anger, sadness, fear, guilt, embarrassment, and hurt. Now, obviously, some of the words we're more familiar with sit within those. So, for example, frustration sits within anger. When we say we're feeling frustrated, we're actually feeling anger, just not high-level anger. It's a medium-level anger. When we're feeling lonely or down, we're actually feeling sadness. So if I'm feeling lonely today, it's because I'm sad I can't see my children. I can't see my friend and have a cup of tea with her. Yeah, so I'm actually feeling sad. I'm not actually feeling lonely. Lonely is just a version of sad. Is this resonating? Are you?
Yeah.
If you're feeling stressed, that's a part of the fear emotion. So it's a lower level of fear, but it's actually fear, because the feeling of stress is the feeling that, what if I don't get this done? What if I don't finish this? What if this is wrong? What if, which is, it's just actually a fear-based emotion, which is interesting, because you wouldn't necessarily associate that if you were looking at it, you know, normally. And then, you know, obviously the guilt one is kind of speaks for itself. You know, if you're feeling,
I think that's
like
all mothers
you've got things that other people don't, and you feel bad about that, that's your guilt emotion. Or, you know, you might have felt really crap yesterday, so you had a donut and chocolate and ice cream and a glass of Coke because it made you feel better yesterday, right? So that might be, you know, an emotion that's coming up for you on different days at the moment. Embarrassment, people are embarrassed to talk about the fact they're not coping. You know, people say, how are you? And what's our automatic response?
I'm fine.
Yeah, I'm fine, or okay, or I'm good. We kind of almost do it on autopilot, right? How are you doing today? A much better question to ask people. But also notice that right now is probably the first time I can think of in our history that you can say, I'm actually not doing okay today. And anyone you're talking to can relate to that. But if you're feeling like you're not comfortable with that, that might sit in that embarrassment space. Yeah. And then I'm also hearing from people, you know, a lot of people who are really battling might be going into that hurt space because they're feeling abandoned or neglected or let down by people around them who they thought would be checking in and who they thought cared about them, but they haven't heard from them and they're not checking in and they're, you know, or when they do, they're just talking about themselves and they're not even asking how that person is, you know, that sort of thing. So there might be some hurt in there. Feeling abandoned and vulnerable sits in there. So if you're feeling vulnerable, that actually sits in the hurt space. So those are kind of the emotions we're playing with at the moment and the different versions of those within those space. So can I just get everyone to unmute for a second? Because what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to just tell me, you know, just thinking about maybe the past week, which one of those emotions you think you maybe have fallen into the most often? What's the one that's coming up in your day-to-day, you know, that might be popping in? And I'll be straight up with mine is probably the lonely one. You know, I'm really, really missing my people. I'm a high-level extrovert. I'm used to seeing my children. My youngest moved out 10 days before lockdown, so I haven't even had a chance to do empty nest, and suddenly I'm on my own, mate, like well and truly. So that's probably the one that I'm kind of dipping into the most often. What about the rest of you? What do you think is the place, you know, when you're not okay, where are you falling into?
Frustration.
Frustration, yeah. So anger, yeah. So just maybe put a little circle around that if you wrote it down. Yeah. Who else?
I put hurt.
Hurt? Okay, good. So if you wrote those down, just put a little circle around that for me.
Anxiety.
Anxiety, Barbara?
Anxiety,
yeah, so that's
yes.
fear. So put a little circle around fear.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just finding a hard time concentrating. I can't sit still. I have to get up and move and run around and do 8 million different things, and I don't seem to get anything done. But
so what would happen if you didn't?
I'd probably feel really lazy or bad. I don't know.
So guilt?
Maybe guilt, yeah.
Okay, so maybe that's your one. Yeah. Think a bit harder, but yeah, maybe guilt is your one. If that's the case, just circle that one. Jane.
I've just started a new job, so I've got fear because I don't know my new colleagues, and so every time I communicate with them, I'm fearful or stressed. Am I communicating the right way by email because they haven't actually had a chance to get to know me in person?
So. You haven't been able to form that proper connection. Okay, good. So that circle that for yourself. Jean, how about you?
A little bit of fear, I guess, about the unknown, about what's going to happen in the future. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe circle that one for you. Sorry?
A little bit of all of them.
Yeah, and look, of course, they're all emotions that we feel, you know, but I just want you to pick one for now so I can just demonstrate this technique with you. So whatever your word was, I'd like you to put at the top of of your notepad or iPad, whatever you're writing on. Just put I feel, and whatever that emotion is, because ... at the top of your page. So mine would say I feel sad because. And I'm just demonstrating with one, but you can do this with all of these at any given time, or you can just sit there and do the whole lot if you're really feeling like you're just so overloaded, you want to cry all the time or throw something or whatever it might be. If you can feel that you're at that tipping point, you can work your way through the whole lot of them. But we'll just use one for an example today. So I feel emotion because ... Okay, and then I want you to just list 5 things straight off the top of your head that answer that. And you're not going to have to read them out. This is just between you, yourself, and yourself.
Just a sec.
So I feel angry because, or frustrated is the word, but it's anger. So I feel angry because, and it doesn't matter what it is. I feel angry because my kids won't sit and do their homeschooling when I'm trying to write my blog, or, you know, or because people aren't hearing me when I'm telling them I'm not okay. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. No one's going to see this except for you. So just 5 things that sit within why, you know, that's why you're feeling this emotion. Why are you feeling anxious? What's making you feel anxious? What's making you feel guilty or hurt?
Oh God. Oh. I just got water coming out of my ceiling. Hold on.
Is that making you feel anxious too?
Making me feel anxious.
Gosh.
What was it?
Water.
Oh.
So 5 things. Have we all got 5 things?
Mm.
Yeah. Now, if you were doing this yourself, normally you wouldn't have 5 things. You would keep writing until you ran out. So you might be angry at Gladys. You might be angry at the US government for not staying in Afghanistan. You might be angry at the delivery driver that you saw come up the stairs yesterday without his mask on. You can be angry at whatever you like. Your list can keep going for an entire page if it needs to, right? Because if you're in overwhelm and so you've gone, I need to sit and do this, chances are you probably will have more than 5 things. But for the purposes of demonstration today, we've just said pick 5. So if you're doing this yourself and you're feeling that and you notice that it's that particular emotion, just keep writing. Okay, so now what I want you to do is put yourselves back on mute. And I want you to say to yourself out loud, I am feeling the because, and then I want you to read out loud to yourself the things you've got written down. Maybe just put your hands up when you're done so I know that you're all done, right? Okay. Now I want you to say out loud, it's okay for me to feel these feelings. I will be kind and compassionate to myself today. And then I want you to just take 3 big, deep breaths down to your abdomen.
Sorry, Cheryl, what was the first one? It's okay to be down?
It's okay for me to feel these feelings.
It's okay for me to feel. Yep.
I will be kind and compassionate to myself today. Okay, now when you're doing this on your own, once you've done that, so you've written and you've put it out on the paper, then you've read it out loud to yourself so you've heard it. So your brain has seen those emotions and it's heard those emotions. It's already felt them, right? So we've now got three processes that your brain has gone through to recognize these feelings. 1 internal, 1 written, and 1 verbal. So your brain has now moved those emotions out of your body onto that paper and then heard them verbally as well. So we've basically taken them out of here and here and gut, where they've been churning around, we've taken them out, and then we've demonstrated to our brain, hey, look, they're here now. They're out here. They're not in here. We're then acknowledging that it's okay for us to feel this way. So we're giving ourselves permission to feel angry, to feel sad, to feel afraid, whatever it is. Instead of trying to talk ourselves out of it, we're acknowledging and validating ourselves for those feelings. And then we're telling ourselves we're going to be compassionate and kind to ourselves, which is what we would do with someone we love if they told us they were feeling these things, right? But we're not so great at noticing that we need to do it for ourselves. Be kind and compassionate to ourselves. And then what you would do at the end of that process, and I know you've all furiously taken notes, so you're probably not going to do it right now, but once you've done that whole process, you would then take that list, that piece of paper, and tear it up into tiny little pieces and throw it away, because your next step after getting it out, seeing it, hearing it, acknowledging it, validating your feelings and giving yourself permission to be kind and compassionate to yourself, you've now released it. So we want to say goodbye now. We can pop it away. We've gone through that process and we can now release that and pop it away where we can't see it anymore. We don't need to. Now, what this does is, first of all, like I said, we've got 3 places where we feel our emotions. One's here. So if we're a head person, it goes around and around and around and around and around, around here. Yeah. Or here, our hearts. If we're a heart person, it goes around and around and around in here. Or our gut, where our emotions tend to live. And that can cause all sorts of other issues, but it can impact our digestion, as I'm sure Christine's told you. It can impact, you know, just how you're feeling during the day in that area. But either way, either place or all of those places, if you're carrying it around internally, that's what this process does. It brings it out of your body and your brain, and then acknowledges and validates, just as we should for other people. Yeah, it's okay to feel this, but you know, I'm okay and I can be kind to myself around this. And then release. So that whole process, instead of trying to push them away or fix them or do something to make them kind of get more invisible or less noticeable, that's not actually helping us move through. We need to move through the emotions. We need to feel the emotions, because without those negative emotions, we can't experience the positive emotions. If we don't know what unhappy is, then how can we know if we're happy? If we don't know what anger is, how can we know if we're calm and peaceful, right? So they're there for a purpose, and we need to be able to use them as they're meant to be used. We need to allow our body and our brain to process them as they're meant to be processed, so they don't just build up and build up and build up inside us. So yeah, so any questions, any feedback? Everyone's on mute.
I said I will be kind and compassionate to myself and eat some chocolate.
Yeah, Christine might say that's not being kind and compassionate.
There I am. Oh.
Wasn't the first workshop on food and stuff? I can't comment on that one. Can you see how it works? This is actually an NLP process. So I'm an NLP practitioner as part of what I do in my coaching. And so it's all about understanding how our body creates patterns and uses them to protect us. But sometimes when it's doing that, if it's in the wrong space, it's actually harming us instead of protecting us. So understanding how to go through that full 360 process with our emotions and be okay with them is really important.
Cheryl, what happens when you say, okay, I'm going to release it, and then a few days later it all comes back again? Do you just have to do the same process? Because obviously...
but will it come all back again? Because you've gone through that process. So until you've done that consistently, yeah, and you'll notice, like today it might be sadness. Tomorrow it might be frustration and anger. You know, another day it might be stress, you know, or hurt, or one of the other ones. And there's no reason why you can't sit there, and if you feel like you're so overwhelmed that every single one of those resonates with you right now, then do that process. Shut your door, on your own for an hour and do the process for all of them. And I guarantee you will feel the difference, because you're giving, at the moment, it's all in here, right? Like it's stuck inside you, and that's why you feel overwhelmed, because it's all here. You can't escape when it's inside you.
If it's hurt and you feel abandoned because people aren't checking in with you, like family members, that is not always in your control.
No, but the feelings are in your control.
Right.
So acknowledging those feelings, allowing yourself to recognize those feelings and what they're around, and then connecting to them, giving yourself permission that you're allowed to be hurt by that. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with you feeling hurt about that. That's a perfectly valid feeling for you to be having. Yeah. And then giving yourself permission to be okay with having that feeling, but then releasing that feeling. It then creates space for other feelings, like compassion, like acceptance, like understanding. Yeah. And what you'll find is you'll probably be giving more of those feelings to other people. And it's amazing what happens off the back of that, right? When we're focused on being what we want to receive.
Now, I know I'm just conscious of the fact that some of you will have other calls and appointments to get to at 12. So we have run a little bit over the 45 minutes I said this would run for. So if anyone needs to finish up, just letting you know that's okay. But I just want to say a big thank you to Cheryl for that technique. I think it's a really useful thing to share and have access to. So thank you, Cheryl. Really appreciate the contribution. And Cheryl's site is Be Ultimate, and she's also got a social media business, which frankly takes a lot of the stress out of my Instagram. So that's.
Can you post that on your Facebook? Just
I'll post her links on there.
Yeah, that'd be great.
In the next couple of days, probably with a photo of this, if I got one decent one that she approves of.
I'm sure.
I'm just going to wrap up and stop the recording at this point.